Welcome to Activate Your Life. I am your host, Erin Esser, and I believe that life isn't a battleground. It's a playground of possibility, where self-sabotage is transmuted into self-mastery. On this show, I share tools such as human design, astrology, inner child, and shadow work that help you disrupt your unconscious programming so that you can begin to experience the life that you desire. Don't forget to like, share, and hit the subscribe button to receive valuable information each week that will change your life. Thank you for joining me and welcome to the show. This episode is brought to you by my course, Activate 2021. This is a 7-week masterclass that begins to disrupt your unconscious patterns so that you can start to show up for yourself in a confident and empowered way. For more information, go to erinesser.com/activation-masterclass. Again, that's erinesser.com/activation-masterclass. Are you ready to be the owner of your life? Then let's go. So, welcome to my podcast. This is Erin Esser, and this is number 1 out of hopefully several episodes that I record. I used to have a podcast a few years ago, and I really enjoyed it. It was a podcast that a friend of mine and I, at the time, we interviewed quite a few people. So this is a little different format, as I will be the main one. At times I will interview people as well. But for the purpose of this podcast, I just wanted to welcome you, and I wanted to introduce you to me. So, as you already know, my name is Erin Esser. I live in Asheville, North Carolina. It's a beautiful, beautiful city with amazing landscape, mountains, waterfalls, and just amazing beauty surrounding me. So we moved here. I have 3 kids, and we moved here a little over a year ago. I am a coach, among many things, but my passion is helping people live a more fulfilling and passionate and purposeful life. So I wasn't always on this road. I actually struggled for quite a while in my life trying to figure out how I could live a more purposeful life and more fulfilled. I wanted to wake up in the mornings and I wanted to feel excited for my day ahead, and I wanted to feel the excitement of new possibilities. But I had realized that I was in, patterns that were preventing that from happening. And these patterns were, some people call them self-sabotage. That's what I really call them as well too, but I'll go into my journey someday. But about 2015 is when I really started to awaken to the fact that there was more to life than being in a religion, than being, in a set way of doing things. And I wanted to explore more of life and what life had to offer. So I started doing shadow work. I remember watching a video on YouTube, and it was talking about shadow work. I thought, oh my gosh, what is this? This looks really intimidating, but it also looks really amazing at the same time. So I really started to dive into my shadow, and I started to take a look, and, when I would get triggered by somebody, whether it was my kids, I was married at the time, so whether it was my kids or my husband or friends, anybody, I would start to take a look and ask myself, gosh, what is within me that is really, really bothered by what this person is doing and saying? And that really allowed me to make so many shifts in my life. And that's one of the big things that I work with my clients on now, because it was so impactful for me. It really created this opportunity for me to just jump and leap ahead so much in my growth. But, shadow work takes, if you've done shadow work, this too. It takes a lot of humility. It takes a lot of being, honesty, really self-honesty and self-compassion. Those are really the 2 main ingredients of shadow work. Self-honesty, brutal honesty at times, radical self-compassion. But this really helped me to realize and to create values in my life that I hadn't had before with relationships. I had realized how much I was in so many codependent patterns, but I wasn't seeing it because honestly, codependency in this culture that we're in our society is, in so many ways, it is actually celebrated. You know, we talk about it and how negative it is and how toxic it is, but it's actually celebrated, you know, as well. So it was a lot of work, you know, trying to break and release those patterns with people and relationships in my life. This episode is brought to you by my course, Activate 2021 Masterclass, a 7-week masterclass that begins to disrupt your unconscious patterns so that you can start to show up for yourself in a confident and empowered way. For more information, go to erinesser.com/activation-masterclass. Again, that's erinesser.com/activation-masterclass. Back to the show. So, you know, I struggled for a long time, like I said, you know, to really feel comfortable with just being me. And that was really my goal in this life. You know, when I was 12 years old, I had a quote on my wall by E.E. Cummings, and it was something to the effect of, to be nobody but yourself in a world that tries night and day to make you into everybody else means to fight the biggest fight, something like that. You can look it up if you want to find the exact quote, but basically it really resonated with me. And I was 12 years old and I had this, I wrote it out, I saw it somewhere, and I remember writing it out on a piece of paper and I taped it up on my closet door. And I got a lot of flack for that, actually. I remember my mom not really liking that quote on my wall. And she thought that she took it to be as a rebellious quote. And I remember questioning myself at that time and questioning, was this okay for me to even want to be myself? And the whole notion of being myself was so enticing and so, it was a goal for me at that time, but I had no idea how to achieve that. So at some point in my life, you know, I just I didn't necessarily forget about that, but I went about it in a completely different way. I went through like a rebellious phase. I got angry with the world and I got angry with just people, you know, anybody in authority I would rebel against, thinking that that was just being myself. When really, for so many years of doing that, realizing that while some of that was beautiful, but so much of that was, you know, was self-sabotage behavior as well too. So, you know, we can't stick our middle finger in the air telling everybody to, you know, F off. And I mean, we can, and I did that for so long, but it was like not healthy for me to do that. It got myself into a lot of trouble, but I learned a lot as well too through that phase. So, you know, I was always a seeker of the truth. I would say that I would define myself as that. But you know, what happened was I didn't realize until, you know, 5 or so years ago that the truth was really within me. This truth that I was seeking on the outside, you know, and different religion. I was very, very evangelical Christian for a number of years by my own choosing. I didn't grow up that way. As an adult, I chose that. I even worked in the church that I went to, and it was a very political, very extreme church. And you know, I was looking for acceptance. I was looking for guidance. I was looking for, you know, quote unquote, the truth. And I didn't know, though, that I could look inside of me, and nobody taught me that. I didn't know that because it was just, you know, again, like I said, we live in a codependent world where we look to others for our value. We look to others for permission to be okay. And I had done that my whole life, right? So maybe some of you can relate to that. But from there, I went into Orthodox Judaism. It's a long story, but I was working with a rabbi in Jerusalem 3 days a week. And we went to actually stay in Denver, Colorado, and in Houston, Texas, with different Orthodox families, and spent some beautiful, beautiful times there. And we were on our path to conversion into to Orthodox, to Judaism. And one day I remember sitting at my table, my kitchen table, right outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. And I was reading a book. And it was a book of different quotes by different spiritual leaders, or different, not leaders, but spiritual, people in history. And there was one quote, I believe it was by the Buddha. And it went something like this: if you are using a raft to get from one side of a river to the other side of the river, that is an appropriate use of that raft or that boat. But if you were to pick up the raft on the other side of the river and carry it on you, now it's a burden. It's an inappropriate use of what that was, because the purpose of that was to go from one side of the river to get across the river to the other side. And I remember having an aha then. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this was what Judaism was for me, was to get my mind out of the rigid, the fear base of where I was with, who I was told and thought that Jesus was in my life, was that he was the only way, that I was going to go to hell if I didn't believe in him, and that he was my savior. And so now I'm just sharing my journey here. If you're listening and your belief system is within Christianity, that's great. I'm not saying anything against it. I'm just sharing my experience here. But so what I realized that day sitting at my table was that was the purpose of Judaism, was to allow me to really investigate that for myself and to step outside of the limitations of what life really had to offer. But what I was doing in Charlotte was trying to hold on to Judaism and trying to make it work, but it was really a struggle to do that. So that was in 2015, and that is the day that I realized, the truth is really, it's there, but I realized that I was searching for truth outside of myself, looking for certainty outside of myself, looking for safety, security in belief systems outside of myself. So that was really when I started to really, really evaluate, where I was and how I wanted to show up for myself, and how I wanted to show up for my children, and how I wanted to show up for my life. I was 40 then. I'm 45 now. And that was a pivotal year of making so many shifts in my life. There were so many things I still had to work through, but it was on that day that I realized that there was so much more, and I was here to discover that. So, all I knew was that I desired to feel more fulfilled and more, purposeful in my life. Like I said earlier, I wanted to wake up and I wanted to start my day with excitement and with a sense of purpose and a sense of knowing that I was here to not only know myself and not only fully accept myself, but that to do the same thing for others. So really, that's what I'm here for, and I know that, and I've tapped into that so deeply and so strongly over these last 5 years. And that's what I'm here for, and that's why I wanted to start this podcast. And I love astrology, I love human design, and I love using those tools to help my clients and myself and my children to understand who they are and to accept who they are fully. So we'll get into those topics on this podcast, and we are going to get into some really fun, off the wall, but very relevant ways of talking, and I'm going to talk about shadow work. I'm going to talk about inner child healing. I'm going to talk about codependency. So many things that are relevant right now. This is 2020, and, this world, nobody is a stranger to what's happened in this world today, or, this year. And we need to really show up for ourselves in a different way and in a more empowered way. And again, like I said, my passion is to help you stand in your own authority and to know what that is, what that feels like, what that looks like, and to know what it isn't. And to be able to recognize within you maybe some remnants, some pieces of yourself that you haven't reclaimed yet and haven't brought home to yourself. This is about coming home to ourselves. And I've been on this journey now for a while. I still am every day. This journey never ends. It just gets richer. And at times, it gets there. It's a struggle. Growth is hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Sometimes it really sucks. It's not all freaking roses and unicorns. But what it does do, though, the deeper we grow, and the more we lean into conflict, the more that we lean into uncertainty and to the struggle sometimes that life can be and can feel like. The more we lean into all of those things, and that we can hold space for ourselves to be able to be there, the more we are able to feel fulfilled and feel like this world is this beautiful playground that is always showing up for us and always leading us back to ourselves and always showing us who we are. We just have to pay attention. We have to be present and we have to pay attention. So I think I'm going to leave it there. And I really appreciate you. If you're listening to this, I appreciate you being here. And I can't wait to make this a regular thing. And, I have a 7-week activation course coming up in November. It's going to teach you all the ways you've been conditioned. Simple tools that you can bring into your life so you can release all the conditioning and you can be aware of it and operate in a more present and, beautiful way for yourself. So anyway, that's coming up. I'll talk more about that another time, but I hope you have a beautiful day wherever you're listening from, and thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me on today's show. To learn more about Activate Your Life podcast and my YouTube channel, just go to erinesser.com. If you want to learn how to activate your 2021, join the Activate 2021 Masterclass at erinesser.com/activation-masterclass. Download the free gift at erinesser.com/healthy-boundaries. That is all for now. We'll see you next week.